Hey, que pasa, amigos? How you guys doing? I don't know what this video is about. This is really just random. I'm just picking this camera up just to talk at you guys and show you what's going on. And I'll show you what's going on. I can't get into my garage because it's locked. Oh well. Good thing I got my keys, right? Because I normally have to go back in the house and get them. Anyway, let me show you what's going on here. That is lately. I thought I was going to start a new project. Actually, I didn't really think I was going to start it. I just ended up with some more stuff. I was hoping that one day I might start a new project. But anyway, this is the project that might have, but is not going to. Check it out. Yeah, I ended up with another hardtail frame for a big twin. Would have fit a knuckle, panhead, shovelhead, Evo, you know, whatever my choice would have been. And I used some other parts to put on the frame, like that front end right there with some bars and that gas tank. And I just kind of threw some other stuff on it, like that seat right there, which is a soft tail seat, Evo that is. And of course this back wheel with this fender that's underneath it, just to get a visual of, you know, what it would look like as a motorcycle. But anyway, I was at Kenny's one day, and actually yesterday, and he sort of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He told me he has this ratchet top transmission right here, which I've kind of been wanting one of these, but it's missing some guts right here, you know, like the kicker assembly, which is no big deal because, if, you know, I don't know if I'll ever do this, but if I ever wanted to replace the transmission of my shovel, you know, this thing right here, I mean, it's got one of those COWPIE transmissions. I'm pretty sure that the kicker assembly on that, all of this right here that you see, would fit on that gearbox. I think the only difference is just the shifter mechanism between the two transmissions is what the difference is. Anyway, but he said he wanted a certain amount of money for that, which, you know, just so happens my hours have changed at my job, so, you know, not for my benefit either. So anyway, I had a picture on my phone, and I told him, would you be willing to trade for this right here, for that ratchet top? And he thought about it, and he didn't have to think about it too long, so we made a deal. He gets that as well as I get that. So anyway, that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to take that frame down to Scooters because, you know, anyway, I need to build another bike like I need a hole in the head. I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense for me to do it, but logically, it kind of does. I never built a big twin, you know, bobber hardtail before, and I kind of wonder what it would be like. But anyway, because my financial situation has changed again, so we're not going to do that here, at least anytime soon. So anyway, I'm gonna get my stuff together. Well, at least get that stuff, you know, in the van, man, and get down to Kenny's. See, and there it is, frame, tank, wheel, fender. I think it looks better in here because it's got more parts so you can make something out of it. Kenny seems to be a happy camper about it, right?
Yes. I'll find me a little panhead stick in there, and
yeah, because he's got more resources than me to get stuff. So
I don't know about that.
I kind of have to wait for the planets to align right to get stuff like that.
But I need a set of shovelhead cases if anybody out there got a set.
Yeah, you hear that? So anyway. And we're back several days later here in the garage, and what have I been doing since the last thing I recorded for this video? Well, I know it's been a little while, but I've just been tied up with doing life stuff, and then for the sake of peace of mind, coming in here and working on stuff. So there's a lot of stuff I have done that I didn't even get on film, but I figured I might clue you in on it. So anyway, where shall I start? Oh, I know. I have been going through the ringer with this motorcycle right here. And why? Well, as I was saying to you earlier, that I was trading Kenny that rigid frame for that transmission. And, well, let me show you the end result of that. Here's the ratchet top right here. And there's the shifter right over there. And yes, there's still a COWPIE in there. After I had installed the ratchet top and taken it back out and put the COWPIE back in. And why did I do that? Well, let me tell you something. I was going down the road one day, and I was just touring on down the road, and having a good little ride, and I heard this horrible squeal. I didn't know what it was, other than maybe it was a bearing, and I was right. It was this bearing right here. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but there's some discoloration on the inside of that race. So much so that it made some discoloration right there on that main shaft. See that brown area? I mean, that's not rust, that's from heat, and that's where that bearing was sitting. And all that bearing is the main shaft support bearing for my transmission. You know, it mounts onto the transmission, and the clutch basket's right in front of that. Basically, it's a substitute for not having an inner primary. So that bearing roasted. As you can see, the evidence that's on the shaft. And so I went ahead, and what I had done is that I bought another bearing from the auto parts store, because obviously, you know, what I should have done when I got that main shaft support plate, I don't know if you can see it. I mean, I saw this before I installed that support plate, but on the bearing race it says China on there. Yeah, I thought about replacing this bearing just because of that, because, you know, most of the stuff that comes out of China is cheaply made, and obviously so, I didn't get 5,000 miles out of that bearing. So anyway, I went ahead and replaced that bearing with another bearing that was a shielded bearing, and I didn't know much about bearings at the moment, and I ran it with that, and then I realized I put the wrong bearing in that for the application. I needed a sealed bearing, and then I went ahead and bought a new old stock bearing and put that in there, and then I started hearing a noise, like kind of like a chirping noise after a while, and it sounds like this. And so I thought to myself, okay, I started doing some homework. I mean, I looked too much into this, but I took a mic and I measured the main shaft on the ratchet top, and I measured the main shaft on the COWPIE. And between the two shafts, even though they're the same length, you know, for some odd reason, one of them is 1/1000th bigger than the other. In other words, the inner race of the bearing measures to be exactly 1 inch, and the shaft on the ratchet top is 0.999, and the shaft on the COWPIE is 0.998. I thought maybe that had something to do with it. You know, I'm not an engineer, so that wasn't the case, because I had enough of trying to fight with this whole bearing situation that I pulled the support plate back off after I heard that noise that I just showed you, and decided that's it. I didn't have this kind of trouble with the COWPIE. I'm just putting the COWPIE back in. Maybe there's something wrong inside that gearbox. So I put the COWPIE back in. But before I even took the bike for a test ride, because it rained relentlessly, where I didn't really want to take it for a test ride, I decided to just go ahead and take apart this transmission and see if I can find any damage in there. That might be the noise I was hearing. But to no avail. There's no damage in this transmission. Everything is fine. I mean, everything is just perfect. But anyway, I put that transmission, that COWPIE, back in the bike. Once I finally got around to getting to doing a test ride, I was all happy that, you know, I was certain that had to have something to do with the transmissions. Well, guess what? I'm sitting at a red light and I hear that same noise again. So I learned that, okay, being that I didn't find anything wrong with the ratchet top when I took it apart, that means it wasn't the ratchet top anyway. On top of that, the fact that it still did it with this transmission. So I took a piece of hose and I used it as a stethoscope, and I located the noise, and stupid me, turned out to be my belt was too tight. So there I go, ready, fire, aim, you know. Anyway, on top of that, then I started having some other issues with this shovel. Like one day I'm riding this bike and then it stalled out at the red light, like old bikes do sometimes. But then it was a real beast to try to start it again. I mean, I was on the side of the road, just kick until it finally started up. And then when it fired up, which it's done this before, but it seems to do it more often, or it did it more often. When it fired up, I would hear a lifter tapping, and the front cylinder was hitting harder than the back cylinder. And so that told me that I have a lifter collapsing on the rear cylinder. So once I finally got home, I was resolved to not spending any more money on lifters. That's like the third set of lifters that was in there. So this bike came with solid lifters, so that's what I did. I kept the solids when I took them out, and so I went ahead and put them back in that motor. fired it back up, and much to my surprise, you know, some of you who have seen some of my past videos know that I wanted to put hydraulics in there just to quieten the top end, because the top end was just so noisy with the solids. Well, to save you the long story, when I put the solids back in there, it wasn't noisy anymore. I mean, I can hear more noise with the solids, but it wasn't like it was before the engine got rebuilt. So all that time dealing with lifters before I rebuilt the engine, the whole, you know, bottom and top, it turned out that my top end was just wore out. That's why it was noisy like that. So I took it for a ride with those solid lifters, and that sucker, I mean, I didn't know, well, then again, it might not be the fact that they're solid lifters. It might just be because, you know, I had a collapsed hydraulic lifter. But this thing has a lot more pull to it now. I mean, it makes the bike feel a lot more lightweight. The throttle is way more responsive. I mean, the acceleration is way better. I mean, it feels like it's got just as much get up and go as my Evo Softail. Oh, and I don't know if I posted it in my community. I know I put it on my Facebook. But on Ironhead, I had a little bit of drama with that. I mean, not really drama, but, well, if you look, I've relocated the license plate and the taillight assembly. The reason why I did that is because, well, I'm going down the road one day, just having a good time, doing about 60 miles an hour, I guess. And I hear something fall off or break or whatever, and I grabbed a handful of brakes and looked at the front. Everything was fine, but I looked behind me and I didn't see my taillight back there. Yeah, that thing busted off right there at the axle. In fact, there's the broken piece still right there, kind of like acting like a washer or something like that. So what I've done is I've taken just a piece of flat bar that I had laying around the garage, one of these, and I just experimented. I didn't film it because I didn't know if it was going to be a success, but then again, I usually just film what I'm doing, whether or not it is successful. But anyway, I took a piece of that flat bar. I don't know if you can see, but I twisted the metal on each end and welded it to the sissy bar. Of course, I used this as a jig to drill my holes. I got the license plate angled up where cars behind me can actually read it, and hopefully that my tail light will be seen in the middle of the day. So I have a brand new tail light coming to me in the mail from Lowbrow, and I'm going with that same style of tail light I did have, you know, that old 1930 something model Ford truck tail light or whatever that looks like this but in better shape. See, this one got smashed. So anyway, but yeah, but that's that. And what else have I been doing? Oh, and check it out. Got a few additions to the garage for my most recent birthday that came up. So I got me a hydraulic press, and no more going to Kenny's to use his tools all the time. And also, this has been a long time coming, but I got me a 175 gallon, I think that's what it says. Yeah, air compressor. And actually it's not 175 gallons, 21 gallons, I'm sorry. With a 1.5 horsepower motor or whatever. But hey, that opens the doors for some new tools. You know what I mean? So anyway, as far as this whole transmission ordeal, once I get this ratchet top back together, you know, this mess right here, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I mean, I got the COWPIE back in there. I mean, it wouldn't be nothing to swap them out again, but I don't know. I'm just not in the mood to do it. I'm more used to the shift pattern on this transmission than I am on that one. This one is a reverse. This is actually a 1965 panhead transmission, so it's 1 back and 3 forward rather than 1 forward and 3 back. I may just run this transmission for a while until it croaks or whatever, or who knows, maybe I'll keep it in there and use this on, who knows, a later project I don't even have resources for. But until then, guys, I don't know what I'm going to film next, but until that happens, you guys keep the rubber side down and you be good to yourselves. And thanks a lot.